Okay. Gio, you're in Dallas today. But where you been? I'm trying to keep up with you on LinkedIn. I can't trace your
So
activity.
I was in DC and Atlanta last week.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got to there's a OE franchisee looking in Northern Virginia. So I went and looked at some spaces with him. Had some time to spend with Kloppenberg and kind of hear what's latest and greatest from the AY front and kind of what he's working on, what the Canada AY team's working on. So some cool stuff. And then I saw Mike Creel
Yeah. Yeah.
on
That's an
Friday
always
on
fun
sorry on
post.
Thursday
Yeah.
before I left town. So Mike's always such a big ball of energy. He's got all these big ideas and he's
Yeah.
always
What is
got
he doing?
something,
We should have
something
him back
going.
on so I can get an update. I haven't talked to him in a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. He'd love that. So it was good. It was good to catch up with him. And then I flew to Atlanta, looking at a space there, looking at a takeover space.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I won't say who it is because the story I'm about to tell, but I showed up because I have a prospect that's looking at it. So we walked in to tour it. And apparently the staff knew who I was, and I did, I'm clueless, right? And like, so I said I was there for an appointment. They put me in the back room, and the prospect showed up, and we were having a pre-meeting, kind of just to level set and stuff. And then the potential seller walks in. He's like, "My staff is in a frenzy now because they saw you walk in and they know who you are." And I'm just like, "They know who I am? What do you
Like
mean?"
you're
He's like,
famous.
"No, they all know who
You're a
you are."
celebrity.
So
Mhm.
I felt so bad. So that means we can't market so much.
Wait, you were trying to be under the radar or what? Wait, why did you feel bad?
Well, because the team doesn't know the space is potentially for sale. Right.
Wait, did you tell them? Did you say something?
No, they just
No, okay.
assumed because I was walking in and that's what it was.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Which and we've had some of these experiences in the past, right? Where it's that we walk into spaces and people know who we are, but never has it worked against me.
oh, so you're saying they were connecting the dots about what you did
Yeah.
to work and why you're there. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I mean, you tour a lot of spaces. I mean, I don't think we've even really talked about you're on one of the podcasts, we talked about your iOS tours and that staff being in a frenzy, but that was so they could make you cocktails.
Speaking of actually, I just got a picture from Liz and Stormy. They're actually in Mexico City right now, sending me pictures of their hospitality tours. So it's
Ah.
Javier and his team do an incredible job. So
That's how they roll. I can't wait for immersive. Okay, wait, and then is you mentioned it on the last podcast. Well, so we're doing immersive in December in New York.
yeah, second week of December. I don't think we don't have a date locked down yet, but we've got sponsors locked down that have requested it. So it's at the request of sponsors. So excited to get to New York and kind of they were talking about doing it this winter. And basically I told them, I said, look, we need to do it uh early December because the Christmas decorations, everyone wants an excuse
I
to
love
go
New
to New
York.
York for
Totally.
Christmas,
Yeah,
right?
I was like, maybe I'll go, and yeah. Although I'd want to take Dagny, but maybe we could do a long weekend. She's getting older, where it's like not so cool to miss school all the time.
It's irrelevant. And
Wait,
so,
wait, what did I do recently? Oh,
uh-oh.
I I almost I almost called you twice about Enneagram emergencies, but this one was more like I literally laughed out loud when I sent it. So we're having this like political drama with the city around fields for soccer space and the club, which is very monetarily incented,
Yeah.
jams, 100 kids in like 20 square feet for practice. And so they're accusing us of not being dense enough because we can't get our volunteer coaches, all on the field at the same time. Anyway, so the councilwoman who's on this field use committee sent me an email about a volunteer fair. And I responded back with this total wise ass crack about I was like, "Oh, I'll share a table with someone so that we have more density." And I was like, "That is such an 8 comment." Like, I couldn't even believe
Mm,
it, like, entered
you
my
spent so much time.
brain.
Oh, and that's the first thing I thought about is that is so anti Jamie. I mean, it says I want people to love my image.
I
Just
hit I hit send and I was like, "Woo." Like, that was so Geo. I can't believe I did that.
I've actually got friends that'll call and be like, "Hey, I just want to tell you the story. I tapped to my inner Geo," and I was like, "What does that even mean? Should I be like offended that you would call it that?" Or I mean, he's like, I just know that you just don't care, so you post stuff or you send stuff, or and I mean, I'm like, but it's so interesting, right? And it's just, and you don't mean that to be disrespectful, but at the
Oh,
same
no, I love
time,
it. I was like, I felt like, it's kind of like funny, like not my, but I was like, okay, if I'm gonna do it and not go, be all three and worry about what she thinks, I have to just
yeah,
own it.
yeah. It's almost like negotiating, right? Is I tell people all the time, if you want to negotiate, that means you have to be ready to walk away from the table. And if you're not ready to walk away, then you're not ready to negotiate. And so it's the same kind of thing. If you're not ready for the potential backlash of a snarky comment like that, then you probably should not send it.
Totally. Well, I don't know what came over me, but I definitely channeled my inner Geo.
So
Yep.
what's the latest with you? What are you working on these days? Kind of anything, any cool projects? I know you constantly have your co-working school going. I am
Yeah.
working with a couple that just started, I guess, what do you call it, phase two or section
Yes,
two?
yeah,
Or
I know. We're trying to be, yes, we're melding phase 1 and phase 2 back together, but yeah, they're working, yeah, we got a lot of folks who are kind of in space search mode. We're working with a couple of them. Yeah, I mean, moving people along in that program. Our community manager, we're doing a mail challenge right now with our community managers and some
which, by the way, you got a
operators.
huge shout out at GWA about
I
it.
forgot. I know. I was like, "Hey, William, can I have McKenna's email so I can send her a check?" She's
Yeah,
so cute. Well, it's really fun because okay, so the I was doing some work on like sort of what's like at the core of what I do, and it's really about making sure it's really about profitability. Right?
yeah,
Like, I care about community, I care about a lot of things, but I really want people to be profitable. And so, how do I bring that out more in the startup school? Because you and I, we talk about this all the time, but we have a unique position to get in front of people before they make mistakes. But then after they open, I can't necessarily help them change their space, but I can help them do things like start their mail program or optimize it. So we're doing a little mail
yeah.
challenge. William's been helpful on that, and we just had our first, like we had our kickoff last week and our big kind of like, here's, package and pricing this week. So I get to get my nerdy side out and get into some of that. Yeah, what else? I don't I feel like I've been busy doing that and trying to find a new team member. I lost anyway. Yeah, normal
Well,
business.
you told me you're about to hike the Grand Canyon.
I am yes, hopefully if all goes well. And as long as I'm not using my foot, it feels fine. So as long as the foot thing's in there, I'm so excited for this. It's such a bucket list, like, go with the girls. We've been doing lots of planning. I've been doing
Have
lots
you
of
ever hiked the Grand Canyon?
I've been to it and I long
Okay.
like I don't want to, date myself, but a lot of years ago. I can barely remember it. I remember hiking like a little bit, but nothing very meaningful. So I've never even done for training. You were supposed to do a 4-hour hike and I did a 3-hour walk and I was like, this is so boring. And I kind of gave up. But I do live, well, you've been to visit, but not like where my house is. I live at the top of a giant hill. So
Yeah.
which is kinda good because when you hike the Grand Canyon, you have to go down and then straight back up for the end of it, which is crappy. So I did have a couple times, like, gone down as far as I can go down the hill and walk over and then back up the other side, and so I've tried to train a little bit, but I think it's mostly gonna be perseverance.
And
Yeah.
well, it's grit and perseverance, number one. Number two is you're with friends,
Yeah.
doing a bucket list thing. Number three, it's beautiful out there, right? And so your boring walk turns into something different when you got lizards and snakes and
I
cacti.
know, I don't wanna talk about snakes. I'm terrified of snakes, so I've been trying to block that out. I'm thinking there will be enough people that the snakes will be, but it is hot. It's 100 degrees at the bottom of the canyon, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's
is what they love, right? They're all
thanks. Yes,
basking in the
thank you for that.
sun.
Yes. Yeah.
No, no,
That's
they're
why I
more
have
scared
friends
of
and
you
friends,
than you are of them.
hopefully.
Well, and there'll be a big group of, I mean, you said you're basically taking a shuttle, so there'll be a big group of y'all. So it'll be a lot of fun, right? I mean, I think you said
Yeah.
14 hours, 24 miles. That's
hours
huge.
yeah, because 'cause we're gonna walk it. People run it. That would probably be you. I mean, there are people who run and come back on the same day.
Yeah. So we've hiked Havasu Falls. So we hiked down and we stayed at the Havasu Indian Reservation and just hung around the falls that after that evening and then the next morning and then hiked back up. And it was awesome, right? But I mean, the guys I went with, it was one of those where I got a call. It was like, hey, we got a spot. Do you want to go? I'm like, I'm in. But they had made a reservation like 9 months ahead of
Usually
time. I
get up at,
mean,
like, 3 in the morning, like, they open reservations, like, a year in advance. I think it's a year in advance at, like, 3 in the morning, and so, yeah,
yeah,
one of us got up and made the lodge reservation because you don't this is, like, really the only time you wanna go because it's 100 now, but it gets worse.
yeah.
You don't wanna go in July.
No, no, for sure. Because then you're hiking. I mean, and to make the temperature is bad enough, but then that means you got to hike down that much more water, right? And so,
I
so
actually
that
have water stops, like, here and there, but I
okay,
have been yeah, I need to research that a little bit more. I have been hiking with, like, water bottles and weights in my backpack just to, like yeah,
yeah.
get the feel of it.
So that actually brings up a funny story that you'll laugh at, and I've always been extra special from multiple standpoints. But I was taking a botany class. And I think you know this by now. I'm very resourceful, right?
Is this
So I
in
didn't want to
undergrad?
take
Give me some context.
in my undergrad. Yeah.
Okay,
So I didn't want to take a science class. I needed 8 credits.
okay.
And I found a botany class that was 8 credits. And the class was you basically went Mondays for 2 hours just to class. And then we basically flew into West Texas and then took a bus and did hiking through Big Bend. But it was hiking and camping.
Mhm.
And so you had to take all your stuff out there. So there was one group that drove down and then flew home, and we flew in and then drove back to Dallas.
Okay.
So we got there, the tents were already set up and everything else, but you had to bring all your stuff, right? And so you had all this water that you had to pack. And so the interesting part is part of the class was the last day you actually hiked and you got to choose where you hiked, had to carry your tent, had to set up, had to survive the night and then hike back. Well, I'm 19. I'm with two other ex high school athletes. They're like, oh, we're going to go to the furthest point. And we thought it was a brilliant idea. Not so brilliant when you're having to carry everything. And then on top of that, and there was a
Did you
couple
get, like, bonus points for going as far?
no, no
Okay.
bonus points, just ego.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of older ladies that were taking the course too. And when I say old, keep in mind I was 19
Yeah.
at the time. So
You're 30.
they're probably about, I want to say they were in their 50s.
Okay, okay.
And and so we get out there and these poor ladies are dying from the hike, right? And so we decide we're going to be nice and carry their water. So we're
Okay.
carrying our water and all their water. It was brutal. And then we decided, oh, you know what? We don't need all this water. We gave water away. So we get out to the camp and we're dying.
Oh, no.
We literally made our ramen noodles with Gatorade. We boiled Gatorade and made our ramen noodles in
You were out of
Gatorade.
literally out of water?
Yeah.
You could die.
We ran.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we woke up. So I didn't sleep because we hadn't had any water. We dehydrated, but we
Yeah.
had to make it till daylight in order to pass because it was essentially our final, right? We'll call it our
So you had to
final
not
thesis.
die and not give up, basically, until
So I
Okay.
woke up again. I couldn't sleep. And so sunrise was
'Cause
at
you're dizzy and lightheaded and
5:45.
okay.
So I woke up at 4 and ran back to the checkpoint.
Did
The
you
store.
vent?
Oh, no, I left the
Oh,
stuff there. So I ran back and the store, they had a little convenience store at the checkpoint that opened at 8 o'clock or whatever. So I ran back. I got water for the guys and then and ran all the way back with water for the guys and to pack up my tent and head out. And then I was like, what an idiot. I was an idiot even back then, but yeah, we can do hard things, right? So you'll be fine next week.
totally.
And I was gonna say Big Bend in the Grand Canyon. I mean, you've got the resilience, you got that CrossFit mentality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it should be fine. It'll be fun. I'm trying to think of what else is going on. Feel like there's stuff.
I don't think we even talked about the I don't think we've talked about the immersive. The
No.
immersive was awesome.
Yeah. I
Uh
talked to William about it, and
yeah,
he just really enjoyed the intimacy.
yeah,
Yeah. Just, it's a totally different vibe, which is why I still I haven't been to one at all. And I really wanted to see ampersand. I haven't even talked to Kim Lee because Kim was there.
yeah.
Wesley was there. I got messages from folks who were there. But yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, so I mean I want to say the final count was 55 to 60, right? So it was perfect. Like you said, it's super intimate, but it's funny. You've always got these hiccups, and I'm giving away trade secrets, but at one point, where I emceed the day,
Oh,
which is I love that
cool.
side of it, and
Great job.
it's funny. Megan gets all worked up, and she's like, "Well, what if people don't come up with questions, or what if there's?" I'm like, "Trust me, I got plenty of questions." So I'm actually having to
Do
pay
this all
attention to
day
be like,
long.
"Okay," I'm having to pay attention. I'm like, "Okay, what questions can I come up with?" But at one point, I get a text from Megan and Miranda. They're like, "We've only got 45 box lunches, and we have more than that in people." So I'm like, so I had to buy time while Miranda went out and got more box lunches. So it was a good
They
thing, right?
they just delivered the wrong.
Well, I don't know if they delivered the wrong amount, but also people show up at the last minute. You've got, so it worked out great, but the whole point of it is super intimate, 50 plus people, a lot of great conversations. A lot of people got a chance to connect. Quite honestly, some new faces for me who actually we've got Chico coming on
No.
who
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize that he is as big as he is.
I'm like, I'm sorry, you have how many spaces? Where are you hiding? What's happening?
Yeah. So I had a chance to go through his space as well as in DC. He's super cool. First of all, great guy, super smart, and then I went through his space as well as in DC. And so I think that's the neat part is you see faces that you don't I like. I didn't know I'd never met him I'm sure I'd come across him at GWA, but never had we had
Yeah,
a
there's
good
enough people there that
conversation.
you can miss people. Yeah.
Yeah, Thrive, Ramon and his team were there. I saw him walk in and I hadn't seen Ramon in forever.
Well, we have a remote.
So Ramon showed up and
Exciting.
and we got Ramon locked in now too. But Ramon is, he's an entrepreneur, right? And I saw him sit down on the couch I think they walked in for the second session. I was like, I'm going to see how long this lasts because I could see his wheels just turning. He couldn't sit very long. So he went into the corner and kept plugging away while his team was listening and taking in all the information. But it was good to connect with him, and I think we have him on the schedule here for the next few weeks. So it'll be good to get him on and kind of hear what's going on with Thrive, where they are in their growth. I know they've continued acquiring stuff. They're stabilizing some of the existing locations they've got. So it'll be good to get him on as well. Who else? Oh, it was great to see. I hadn't seen the Mullen. I had heard a lot about it and
Yeah.
knew Charlie well from his Surf Corp days. So it was really cool to look at the Mullen and to hear from him kind of with how that's what their model is and how that's evolving and kind of what their goals are. Have we had Charlie on?
No, we haven't had Charlie on. We should totally have
We
him.
need to have Charlie on then.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Ampersand.
it was good to have him. Ampersand we saw, he's been open 7 months and he's at 90%, right? So
That location, that ampersand location or the Mullen?
yeah, that location there. And so, it's for me, it's interesting to talk to people about their deals and how they're doing based on, because I walk into space, I'm like, hallways are too wide,
Right.
too
I
much
saw that in
open
the photos. I
area.
was like, "What's happening there?" Right?
Yeah. And so it's just,
Okay.
but again, I mean, there's multiple ways, multiple paths to profitability, right? And it's just fun for me to hear kind of, okay, what's working for you, what's not working for you. Or yeah, I totally agree with you. I did think that would have worked for you.
Okay.
So it's always good to have those connections. But also, we actually ended the day with the two brilliant minds of the industry, with Bill Bennett and Brandon. And so it was, and Bill had a deck and everything and ran through it. I'd love to get,
Wow.
I've been thinking about doing, maybe we do a webinar with him so he can walk through that deck.
Yeah, let's totally do it.
So I'll reach out to him, and then Brandon. I mean, we recently released the podcast with him,
Yeah.
so people have, if they were listening, but if you didn't listen to it, go back and hear it. I mean, just talking about all the stuff he's working on with institutional landlords and, end users, really, not even really operators, but landlords and enterprise, as to what's working, what are they seeing use, all kinds of stuff out there. So it was an awesome immersive, like William said, intimate. And we had some great, a lot of old faces. Scott Chambers was there, his crew is out in Europe. So he's like, I was sitting in California being like, what do I do?
I was
Well, I'm
wondering
gonna go
why
to immersive.
that's hilarious. I
So
was like, I didn't know Scott was going to immersive.
yeah, so he was there. William was there, obviously. Michelle, Faye was in Florida, so didn't she go? Kurt's on it, was on his last hurrah. So Kurt kept me out later than I should have been one night, because he's about to have his second one.
I
So
know
they're
that
about to
he's
go to
coming out.
man to man coverage, or man to woman coverage, I guess. What would that be? I guess man woman coverage of children. I don't know. And so, he made it out. Well, Flip, of course, made his appearance the day before for one night out on the town, and went
And
back
then had
home
to
before the
fly
event
off to
even
Australia
started.
or something. Yeah.
Before the event even started, left. Typical Flip fashion. Trent with Heinz there. So it was a great turnout. Like you said, Kim and Colleen were there as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
it was good to see that they were in the corner, tucked away, talking all kinds of business stuff and connecting and everything else. So it was really good.
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
since we're uncensored, you can make that format profitable?
Immersive.
Yeah.
The reality is,
Okay.
the goal is to at least break even.
Yeah.
But if we
Or
can make money, that's awesome. But the reality of it is, it's sponsor driven, right? And so people love that, the intimacy of it, and the fact that there's people that aren't going to go to a big conference because they get lost, or because they don't get value in it, because they're not able to engage. I mean, some of these people do need, it's funny. I saw a meme come across yesterday that basically had the greeters at churches, out in front, stretching and stuff like that. They're like, preparing to ruin an introvert's day. And I think that's the reality of it, is there's introverts that go to these conferences and they get overwhelmed by 100, 200, 300 people, right? But you put them in a room with 45, 50 people and it's awesome, right? And so I think we've got some of that. You've got some of the stuff where it's easy for local people to get
yeah.
there, or
Yeah.
regional people, so there's different formats behind it. And I know Megan's ideas, if we can do, four, one of these a quarter or stuff like that, you start creating chapters or whatever. But I mean, like we'll have two this year, right? With New York. And then we'll have our first international one next year in Mexico at EOS. And it'll work out great, right? And so we'll start working on that. But I mean, if you think about it, there's sponsors that do these dinners where literally they do different dinners in different sub markets, and people show up, right? And so this is just a little more than that. All you need is a few sponsors to show up, and really a big part of it's even driving membership, which is really where your money really is, right? Is really driving not just memberships, but engagement and interaction and education and all those things. And so I don't know. We'll see. But it certainly has some good traction.
Cool. Okay, tell me about switch yards.
It was I was incredibly surprised. And so it's funny because we had just recently I well, first of all, I'd heard about it because McKenna would talk about it. She'd posted a couple things about it, and I think she mentioned it at one of the events. And so I was like, okay. And then we had LG on and he talked about it some more. And so it was I had honestly totally even forgotten that they were in Nashville. And so we did a tour of the Serendipity Labs, and I was having a conversation with several of the people that were there about it. And then ultimately, I was talking to General Provision, and
Yep.
you know,
I
he's
I loved him.
yeah, he's such a great guy. And he's like, "Oh, you haven't been there? I'll meet you. I'm a member." And so he was gracious enough to meet me the day before, or sorry, the day that I was leaving before on my way to the airport. He met me and we toured two of them. And so the first one we walked into was tucked away in the neighborhood by a brand new apartment development. They had some, very neighborhood driven a restaurant and a couple other things. And I mean, very, it was like a little warehouse space, and we walked in and it was incredible, right? I mean, the lights were dim, the ambiance they created, like they had, like these scaffolding, like warehouse pallet things that they had desks on. And I mean, just it was neighborhood driven, but it was all FF&E, right? It's all FF&E. There's no build out whatsoever. And so, I mean, by that I say there's, a kitchen, little, cabinets with
Do they have
coffee maker and
do they
stuff
have
on
phone
it.
rooms?
Yes, they've got phone rooms, and but again, they're not built in. They're just their room
Yeah.
phone booths that literally have a little code on them. They had a website, and they also had what's that code? The little square thing that now people are scanning. I'm so
QR code.
old.
You
Yeah, a QR code.
oh my god, you're mad.
And people are scanning the QR code and you can book time. And
Yeah.
so, but it was very quiet, heads down. There wasn't really any people having conversation. There was no one on the phone. Super intriguing, just the way they created that ambiance. It was probably give or take 5,000 feet, maybe 4 to 5,000 feet. It was on the smaller side of five. And then he said, "Well, I've got time to take you to the next one." I'm like, "Awesome." So we went to the next one. It was an old church development that basically they'd had a little coffee shop and all kinds of stuff, but the actual sanctuary they converted into a switch yards. And again, it was awesome. There was minimal build out, right? Like they'd enclosed, or by enclosed, I was going to say the stage, but you know what I mean. The altar, right? You could get in on both sides, but it was kind of a little nook that you could go into, and everything else was open. You went upstairs, and there was a few phone booths and a couple conference rooms up there. But they remove the big old stained glass windows, and just made them regular windows. So lots and lots of light,
Nice.
and the crazy part about it is it was everything from an 18-year-old to probably the oldest was probably in the mid 50s somewhere. So it was a pretty good mix of people, but it's a social club, right? It's $100 a month.
Yeah.
The part that so that blows my mind. The second part that blows my mind is the fact that they're all on waiting lists, right? So apparently the way it was explained to me, and that doesn't mean it's the right story, right? But they were siding on the first one we went to, and it sold out so quickly that they had to go sign a second deal. And they went and did the other location, right? Or vice versa in one of
Yeah.
those, you know. And so I think that's just it is, if you've created that type of following, and it's $100, right? I'll tell you, I'm sitting in a WeWork right now recording here in Dallas, and I paid $39
Right, just for the day. No, totally.
just
I
for the
mean,
day.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't even do right, my CrossFit gym membership is twice that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and Tim basically said, I pop in here and it's neighborhood driven, it's close to here. I pop
He
in.
lives in Nashville. I
Yeah,
always forget he li yeah.
yeah, he lives in Nashville and still runs a space. Which,
Yep.
by the way, has he
He has not
blocked in
been
a spot?
no.
I need to follow up with him. I know you had him on, and I said, "Oh, we'll dive deeper in some better questions, some juicier
We'll
questions
give
that'll
you a
make you go."
better interview on this one.
Well, they're just different questions, right? It was
Totally.
fun to see
Well, also now
y'all's
I know him a
face.
little bit better because I
Yeah,
sort of got to know him on the podcast and then I saw him at Juicy. So no,
yeah.
that'd be fun. That totally.
It was interesting to see y'all's response to when I asked about his wife. Poor thing, he didn't know what to say. He's like, my wife. Yeah, I'm just like, people aren't used to you caring, right? They're not used to you asking
Yeah.
questions that are outside the business, and so it catches them off guard. So it's fun to have this. So it'll be good to have Tim on too. But yeah, I think you asked me, do you do you see it? And I can see how they can expand in a ton of different markets and drop in these little social clubs. And again, they're not taking prime real estate. They're not
Okay,
spending
but
a ton of TI.
yeah. So okay, if an operator comes to you and wants to do 5,000 feet and wants to do a switch yards, what do you say?
What makes you think you can do it?
Okay.
Right. I mean,
You
and
still
at
think
the
it's
end
a
of the
little
day,
secret
it's
saucy. You think
yeah.
they've
Well, at
got
the end of the day, it's
something.
come down. It's multiple things, right? Is they have the secret sauce of the environment they've created, but for you to sell out in minutes an entire membership base, right, is huge, right? And what do you have? I don't know how they got there, right? I would love to get the Switchyard guys on. I know we had LG on, but I'd love to get the Switchyards team on and be like, how did you create this phenomenon, right? Because that's really what it is. Most people, and you know it, most people that talk to me, I don't believe in the membership driven model. I think it's very difficult to make it work. Um,
Fact. It's not even that you don't believe it hypothetically. It is a fact that it's
yeah,
hard to make that model work at 5,000 feet, but they're not staffed, right?
no,
Yeah. So it's all QR code driven.
no, no, not even. You're getting in through your phone, right? So
Okay.
they all pull up their app and just scan in, and then yes, you book the rooms with that. And I think from what Tim told me, they have one person that kind of goes around and makes sure everything's clean and
Loader. Yeah.
there's no issues. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think a lot of it is back end driven on, the team that's doing the marketing and creating all the social media hype and everything else. I think is the big part of it. But yeah, if there was one in Dallas, I would totally pay the $100 to be a member without a doubt.
No, but what would you do there? You can't record a podcast there.
Sometimes you just need, you know, for me, sometimes I just need to get out of my house, right?
Okay.
I just need to go focus, and you know, that's when I don't have a choice to do anything else, when I'm like, okay, I guess
Right.
I have to work. Um, yeah, and so sometimes it's just nice to get away, right?
No,
And
I get
some of the
here. I don't know if you can't do it for $100 here because of the cost of real estate. So they have to,
oh, no.
yeah. Hmm. Mhm.
But again, I think about how many people would do something. And that's really what the Mullen is, right? The Mullen is, I mean, if you haven't
Same.
been in a location, it is, I mean, very few offices,
Okay. But
right?
very bougie.
Super bougie. They've got space, they've got teams, and by event space, I mean, you could have a space out in the open. They don't have like an auditorium or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then they have really cool like meeting spaces, and that's really what it's driven around. I mean, I don't know the pricing, right? But it's 400-ish plus, right? Depending on the market, it's got to be. And they are going, I mean, the building they're in is the same as Ampersand. They're beautiful, like timber buildings, right? And then I know those things are $60+ a foot just because of how much it costs to build them.
Even in Nashville?
Well, again, they're timber buildings, right? It's you're not just they're new construction, and the cost of building a timber buildings is so high. And keep in mind, so they're actually in the building with like the Association of Country Music, and all these big, you know, associations tied into country. And so it's a bougie area. The Soho House is literally like right across the street.
Huh, interesting.
And so that's a model that I'd struggle more with, where I'm like, how many people are going to get to pay that kind of money, right? For how long?
Yep.
And clearly Charlie knows what he's doing. I mean, New York's doing really well,
I
and
mean,
that
unless
doesn't
you're
surprise
getting
me.
yeah, I'd be curious about his like, is it sort of more business subscriptions for meeting room access and super bougie and some people like that? I don't know. I like bougie, so I'd probably pay for it.
Yeah, and I think you'd pay for it. The question is how long
How
you pay for it for,
yeah.
right? Like I've got friends that have done Soho House, and they've been like, I really didn't use it as much as I thought I would, and so they dropped their membership, right? And so I'm
You're
a
not
big
letting
part
that
that
roll through the credit card statement every month if you're not going in, like you would have.
yeah, a big part that he's counting on is the enterprise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The person that's basically expensing it and everything else, the vendors and stuff that are going to the Country Music Association and all those things that are tied into the music industry to Nashville, right? But yeah, certainly a really interesting model, and it was good to see those. Then in Atlanta, I was able to swing by and see Wesley and their showroom there. And I know they just recently signed up for your class, right? Because they want to know more about the industry and everything else.
Progress. Yeah.
So it'll be exciting to have her and her team go through.
Yeah.
And so I gave her, and I don't think he's registered either, but I would want to get the guy from Room in, the founder of Room. So they're coming up with some. So I was able to see kind of their new. They've got obviously the phone booths, and they have like a little 2-person meeting room, and
Yep.
they're working on some different
I
things.
have a member who has their two-person meeting room and she monetizes it as like a day off.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
every time I get on the call with her, she's in there and it's great. And it's yep, it can pay for itself and make money.
Yeah, her and I sat in it the other day because I had to charge my phone, so it's got a wireless
Come
charging
on inside
station.
the
So
office. Yeah.
yeah,
I love it. All right,
so
I have to go. Thanks for getting some good guests on the list. I'm excited for what we have coming up.
yeah, we'll keep going.
All right, I'll talk
Have
to
a
you
good
soon.
one.
Bye.